Welcome to MarcusG.TV. I am Chef Marcus Giuliano and I'm a chef on a mission. Today's mission is I'm answering a couple viewer comments. I've gotten comments along the way as in, Marcus, why don't you have a vegan or vegetarian restaurant? And that's a very good question. And here's my answer to that. Here's my response. When I opened Aromatime, I wasn't into the vegan lifestyle. I opened Aromatime over 10 years ago. So I wasn't into the vegan lifestyle. I had done vegetarian. I was at a point where I was eating grass-fed meats. I was back and forth. So I wasn't committed to the lifestyle 100% myself. And I still wasn't along the way for several years. I would go to points where I would eat seafood. And I would love seafood. I would love wild salmon and love high-quality tuna. And then I'd go into spurts where I would just be vegan for 6 months, then go back to eating fish, and sometimes I would dabble in meat again. So it wasn't something that I was super strict on throughout the years. When I first opened the restaurant, the thought had come to my mind, well, maybe I should open a vegetarian vegan restaurant. And I sat down. I had the privilege of sitting down with Gary Null. Gary Null is the author of many, many books, and a lot of longtime health advocates know of who Gary Null is. He's written books like Get Healthy Now, and I was actually in his office, and I was running my business plan by him for the restaurant, and he looked at me and goes, Marcus, I know your area very well. At the time, he was looking to do a spa up here, and he had a farm just up the road in Stone Ridge. And he goes, Marcus, you're not going to be in business if you do an all-vegetarian restaurant, all-vegan restaurant. And he simply explained that you can still serve high-quality vegetarian, vegan, and raw food next to other types of foods and be able to get that point across, as well as being able to take advantage and lure people in with a high-quality meat meal. And to me, that made sense, especially coming from Gary Null, who I considered a mentor of mine through the health movement, to make sense. So the neat thing is, my restaurant allows meat eaters to come in and eat higher quality meat. Okay, because a lot of meat eaters don't want to go anywhere near a vegetarian restaurant. When I was a vegetarian, back and forth, and when I would go, because I would never really eat meat out. When I was mostly a vegetarian, and I would have meat that I knew where it was coming from, I would never go to a restaurant and eat meat. It just, I wouldn't trust where anybody was sourcing it from, especially back in the late 90s. So I would take friends to restaurants, and we would always go to a vegan, vegetarian restaurant. And my friends, I just saw the frustration on their face because they were meat eaters, right? They didn't want to pretend that the soaked walnuts were chicken nuggets, in a stir fry. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to have tofu. And it was just very frustrating for them. And it turned these people off to vegetarian food, right? Because they didn't want that. They wanted their steak. So the idea was, when you come to my restaurant, you get a good piece of grass-fed steak, a local steak, hormone-free, antibiotic-free, something that's not from a feedlot, something that's not from a factory, something that's not from a big company, and you eat soup that's vegan, right? Because all of my soups are vegan. You have dessert that's vegan, because all of my desserts are vegan, except for our local ice cream we serve. But other than that, we have a dairy-free. We have 2 dairy-free options for ice creams. We don't use eggs in any of our desserts. We don't use butter. And then along the way, a lot of our entrees as well are, in fact, vegan or vegetarian. So here the meat eater would now come to my restaurant and cut down his animal production intake, his animal product intake, by at least half, because all he's having is just that piece of protein, and there's no butter on the vegetables, with a lot of restaurants loaded up with butter, and that person would be very happy, satisfied, and satiated from a meal. Several people along the way that have come into my restaurant have actually converted. We actually have a really good friend now who would come in and order surf and turf pizzas in the beginning. And because they see all this other stuff, they would try seitan, they would try tempeh, they would try other things. And they realize, wow, this isn't bad at all, and I like this. So, a friend of ours now actually has a big vegan tattoo on his arm because he's so committed to the vegan lifestyle. Now, he was a die-hard meat eater. When he first came in, he was ordering lamb chops and, like I said, surf and turf pizzas. But now, he's totally committed, and that's happened to several other people along the way. They realize that, wow, this vegetarian food is good. But these are people that would have never stepped foot into a vegetarian restaurant to begin with because of the stigma of vegetarian, healthy food, things like that. So that aspect has really opened us up. Now we have a lot of meat eaters that come in that specifically will eat meat out, will eat meat at home, but when they come here, they have a vegetarian meal because they can get a really high quality, well thought out, well planned, well presented, and satisfying vegetarian meal, right? So because they won't eat a vegetarian meal at just any old restaurant. You wouldn't go to a steakhouse or to a seafood restaurant to order a vegetarian meal because it's not thought out. There's no planning in it. It's just, let's assemble some vegetables, let's make a pasta dish, let's make, even when you go to a restaurant and think you're eating vegetarian, like you eat a risotto at an Italian restaurant, it's still loaded with so much butter. The mashed potatoes are loaded with butter. These are all animal products that at my restaurant, the average diner is totally avoiding. So they might just be eating their piece of grass-fed meat, and then everything else is going to be vegan along the way or vegetarian along the way. Now, as I mentioned, it was uncomfortable for me to take friends out to other restaurants because the whole thing of, well, let's bring a meat eater to a vegetarian restaurant and see what they can do, right? Now meat eaters and vegans can socially interact and not have to worry about embarrassing the waiter and trying to order something special and oh, I'm vegan, I avoid this, and having the restaurant not understand what it is. My wait staff, our staff, we understand what all dietary concerns are, so it's not an issue anymore. You eat vegan, you eat gluten-free, you want a piece of grass-fed meat, you want a cowboy steak, you want a piece of wild salmon, you can do that. In my restaurant, it's that simple. There are certain items that I don't bring in, knowing that I have meats. There's certain things that I just refuse to bring in, like we don't serve veal, we don't serve foie gras, so we don't serve factory farmed meat, we don't serve stuff that comes out of a mass slaughterhouse. So when you come into my restaurant, you're actually getting a positive vegetarian experience whether you know it or not. So you might not realize it, but you actually are contributing. So you are actually decreasing your animal product consumption when you come into my restaurant, and you may not even know it, which is the really cool thing. The reason why more people don't venture into a vegetarian lifestyle is because chefs and restaurants just aren't that creative when it comes to that. Recently we were out in Phoenix and we were at a friend's restaurant. We were with other friends, and I told my friend, it was a regular meat eating restaurant, and I told my friend what I eat ahead of time. He made me this beautiful meal, and the other people sitting on the other side of the table were like, well, I want that, and they actually ordered. One of them actually ordered what we had made, what the chef had made specially for us. And he said to me, he goes, if I knew vegetarian food was this good, I'd be a vegetarian more often, right? Now, isn't that the name of the game? We want to incorporate, we want to recruit people. So I kind of look at my restaurant as a recruiting ground because it's an easy way for somebody to walk in the door, not walk into a vegetarian restaurant and say, what am I going to eat here, and am I going to be happy, and this and that. So that whole mindset their whole mindset has really changed now because they're walking into a place and not knowing, or they're actually walking into a place saying, you know what, I've had a great vegetarian meal there before and I am going to order it. There's lots of meat eaters out there that won't eat protein after meat protein after a certain hour of the day, like 4, 5, 6 o'clock. And I see those people all the time. They'll come in here and they'll order a vegetarian meal. So now they're bringing in meat-eating friends or meat-eating family members that are actually cutting their animal product consumption down. So it's really a cool concept. It's really a cool ripple effect which is happening here. So that's my answer to why we're not 100% vegetarian or 100% vegan. Personally in my diet right now, I am, but that may change down the road. I have no plans of that changing because I feel phenomenal on this diet, and the more I can share my passion through my restaurant and through my YouTube channel and through how we market, the more people can say, wow, look at Marcus, what's he doing? And people say that to me all the time. What are you doing? We now make smoothies for people in the morning that come pick up smoothies every day, high quality vegan raw smoothies. Now, these are people that will normally have a dairy-based smoothie in the morning or a pre-canned, pre-made protein drink in the morning that has whey protein in it. So it's about taking incremental steps along the way and impacting people whether you can or not. Let's face it, I'm not going to turn everybody into a vegetarian. I'm not going to turn everybody into a vegan. None of us are going to be able to do that, okay? It's a very hard thing to convince somebody that you have to do that. However, these people are going on their way eating, but yet reducing their overall animal consumption in my restaurant, which is the really cool thing. I mean, we barely order butter in my restaurant. There's certain things I have my salespeople that say, oh my gosh, you you would like use a case of butter for the whole year. That's because I do lobster night, right, on once a week. And lobster night requires, you know, people like to dip it in butter. Well, if we didn't have lobster night, I think I would probably use 3 pounds of butter the whole year in my restaurant. 3 pounds. Most restaurants use 3 pounds of butter sometimes in an hour at dinner service. And these aren't huge restaurants. These are restaurants that are serving 100 people, 200 people a night. They will use butter like crazy. They buy a case, 2 cases a week of it. So when it comes up to the big picture, my overall animal consumption, animal product usage in my restaurant is much lower than other restaurants. So that's why we're not 100%. Those are my answers, and be interested to see what your comments and criticisms are. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe to my channel, come into my restaurant, check it out. Thanks for watching.